Hi friends, welcome to episode 99. I can't believe we've nearly done 100 of these. And it doesn't feel like I've got much progress, but then people come up here and go, oh, you've done quite a bit, Dean. Let's get on with this weekend. This is the first weekend of October, time of Halloween, and winter is clearly here. It's pitch black outside at 6 o'clock in the morning. I hope this weekend that I will get the chassis painted. That was something I wanted to do last weekend, but I had a bit of a hiccup with the paint. I'll come to that in a minute. And I do want to get the back of the bus from the that big window at the back upwards painted, but there's still paint on the roof and I've still got some dents to fill. But once that's done, hopefully then I can chuck some paint on it and we can tick that little box off for now. Although ticking boxes off really, doesn't always work, does it? So first thing to do, it's not cold, it's probably about 11 degrees out there, so it's not a bad day, and it's not going to rain, although it is rather stormy. So I'm going to put the kettle on, and let's see how much dust I can create this weekend. Right, once again, sorry about the audio quality there. For some reason, my little recording thing, which connects to my camera on my iPhone, doesn't seem to want to play ball with me at the moment. But anyway, this weekend, sadly, it was a storm. We had this storm Amy, and it really sounded like someone was hammering on the door on Saturday. But nonetheless, it didn't affect me. I'm inside in the dry. Not necessarily that warm on Sunday, but we did get some progress done, and I am fairly happy that we can answer a couple of your questions, which were in previous editions, later on in this episode. So, episode 99, we're not far off 100. Let's get started. Right, we're going to be all around the bus. The only area I'm not going to be working on is the cab and the front. One of the things I wanted to get done the other week, funny enough, was to respray the chassis. Because now it's exposed and we can get to it, this is a really good time to kick off with the spray gun. Unfortunately, having washed the bus maybe about 4 or 5 times, each time I do it I find dirt that needs to come off. It's really quite stubborn. I thought, right, well, I'll get the paint out and I'll make a start. Unfortunately, this is what I saw when I took the lid off the paint. I've been asked by a colleague to take this silver paint in. It was actually in the barn, and it was exactly the same stuff that I'd used on the offside. It was really lovely paint, and I was asked by a colleague, would I take it into work, because I wanted to spray the underside of one of the Routemasters RML 2272, which is one of our vehicles we use quite a bit. And I took it in, and then it got returned to me in this condition. It's horrid. It's gone all lumpy. God knows what's gone on here. I can only assume this was a cellulose-based paint, and that somebody has put the wrong thinners in it, which has made it go horrible. Right, so it was time to get the new paint out, which is also cellulose based. Right, now, before we start slapping paint on the underneath of the bus, and in this case I really mean slapping paint, I think it's useful to have a look at a little device which hangs on the side of the chassis. And I wanted to clean it out before we did the respray. Right, so this thing is the sedimenter, and it lies between the fuel tank in the middle of the bus and the engine, so it's roughly halfway between there on the near side. Now, the purpose of this is to take out any bits of big grot that happens to come through the tank. Now, when I bought 3461 back in, was it 1985, this was a source of problems, and I didn't know at the time what was causing it. Basically, we'd do about, I don't know, 15 mile or so, and then the thing would just run out of fuel. And we tried everything, every little thing we could to work out what was going on. And then After much discussion with various enthusiasts who did know a thing or two about RTs, someone suggested, have you checked the sedimenter? Yeah, check that, cleaned it all out, it's fine. Have you checked to make sure the little rubber O-ring, which is there it goes, is still in place? And lo and behold, it wasn't. So what she was doing is she was dragging in air from outside. There is the filter. Sorry, apologies, my camera's playing up. So that is the filter, and it shows you all the muck and detritus that has been caught by it. So just need a little clean out. Right, so time has now come to get the spray gun out, but not before I've had to put masking paper everywhere. You may remember from sort of previous ones of these, I do tend to recycle it. Anyway, there's a recycled masking paper all over the bloody place. Right, so unfortunately my camera was playing up when I dropped it off the roof of the bus the other day. The focus is all over the place, and I've also got one of these little clever gimbal things which sits on a stalk on top of a tripod. So when I'm filming this stuff, the gimbal can follow me around, although I've never tried that before. So get the camera set up and get the spray gun out. I know I've said this before, I don't intend to get this chassis immaculate. I mean, spent ages under here with a needle gun or whatever, a scraper and all the rest of it, getting the paint off. So all I'm doing is just basically putting a first coat of silver on it to make it look tidy. Not only that, it also shows up a few areas that I think, oh, I might like to do that again. So I spotted a couple of bits, especially over the top of the spring. The spring looked absolutely fine, and then when I put this on it, you think, oh, blimey, it's all the old sort of grease that was put on the spring, which is right, it should be there. You shouldn't have dry springs because otherwise they fracture. So anyway, I'm going to have to go back to some of this and probably do a couple of coats. But so here I am, spraying the spring, just in bottom of shot there, and the main sort of parts of the axle. I managed to get round the back there of the axle by laying on the floor. So that's why my overalls are always so filthy, because I spend so much time laying on the floor in the barn. Anyway, there we are. So that is part of the chassis being done. Here's the rest of it. Meanwhile, that sedimenter, which is just here, when I first bought the bus, I think it's probably one of the reasons why the original owner, Mark Dexter, might well have given up with it, because of the fuel problems. You go out, as I mentioned earlier on, do 20 odd miles, and the thing had just appeared to run out of fuel. And there's plenty of fuel in the tank, but that was because it was dragging so much air through to the little header tank that it would just simply not have sufficient supply of fuel to keep going. So anyway, my then girlfriend Stephanie was really good at basically, as soon as the bus started to slow down, I'd give her a shout from the cab. She'd run round with fresh fuel that we kept in a tank inside the bus. And poor old Steph, I mean, she used to get absolutely covered in fuel, but credit to her. Right, so there we are, the fuel tank in all of its glory with the rest of the chassis sprayed, you can see in the background there. Just quickly, it will probably require another couple of runs over, because I've spotted a few issues while I was doing that that I think I could have done a bit better. Like I said earlier on, I'm not looking to get this to be immaculate, because frankly it's hidden from view, so you might as well just get some paint on it and tidy it up. And while the side of the bus is out, this is the ideal opportunity to do this. All the masking paper, as you know, I put away for reuse on another day. The other thing is this rear axle. I wanted to get the paint off of the half shaft covers and give that a really good clean up. So you can see the chassis rail has now been resprayed. The paint has gone from the little half shaft covers, and that will be a project for another day. I just need to do all of them. That's the near side one, obviously. I've got to do the offside one, and I'll do the two at the front. But tyres and axles probably going to be another thing for next year, I think, but I'll leave that now and get on with something else. Right, so while we're dealing with the chassis, shall we skip round to the other side of the bus and take a look at that bit of conduit that's supposed to be holding the power cables? Here's a little reminder from episode 95. running along here, running along the chassis, is this power cable. This is the one that goes to the batteries. Now, this bit should, by rights, be in conduit, but unfortunately, the conduit had all rotted out, and it's supposed to be fixed just up there. There you go. Right, so this is the replacement conduit that I got for the RT. There was a big problem. I got a load of it. Talk about a big problem. I got quite a bit of it actually. I think the minimum I could order was something like about 3 meters. So it's a great big length of conduit turned up, and to get it in the car, I had to cut it down. But anyway, this is attempt number 2. Attempt number 1 went horribly wrong. I managed to get it sort of bent and twisted by heating it and messing around, but unfortunately that little corner there, it compresses, and what happens is it closes a gap on the curve, and you need that curve because the thing goes up through the floor. Now, my colleague at work very kindly agreed to take it on. In fact, I had 2 colleagues at work had a go at it, and it's really struggling with it. And attempt number 2, I got the angle grinder out the other day, and I turned it into a kind of concertina, and that worked quite well. But and I took it back into work, and I said, all we need to do is just weld up just across the radius, just a little bit, just touch it in so that we've got a bit of rigidity, and then I'll take it back down, and then I'll fit that bracket. If you see the bracket at the top there, that's supposed to be somewhere down sort of there and parallel with the remainder of the pipe, because that supports it on the floor. Unfortunately, my colleague, well-meaning he was, and I'm not knocking him for it, got a little bit carried away. Anyway, let's see how attempt number 2 works out. Right, so back down the barn now. I needed to temporarily position this little bracket there, and that's what holds it in place on the floor. Now, unfortunately, having got all the angles right, it seems to have changed slightly. I don't know how, but it no longer works. It's got to be almost tight up against that floor. And then just in the foreground, you can see what remains of the old conduit. And what I'm going to do is I've cut off all of the rusty stuff that was at the end there, and that's the good bit of conduit. You can see the bracket, which is just in shot there, and that holds up the other end. But this is just, unfortunately, it's just pulling itself away from the floor, so it's got to be readjusted again. So we're going to be on attempt number 3. And also what I tried to do was, you can see the cable in shot, there's 2 of them. There's a red one for the positive and a black one for the negative, and I couldn't get them through the conduit. And I tried it when I did the concertina thing that you saw earlier on. I tried it and it worked perfectly, so it's got a little bit bare, unfortunately. And that cable is designed for modern buses, and it sits underneath a modern bus without any conduit, so it really doesn't need this. But I thought I would anyway, although it's been a complete pain in the backside. Right, I thought I'd do this as a kind of occasional series. It's questions from YouTube. The questions that you guys and girls have asked. And I think it's probably better to do it on here than to do it by text, because I can point a few things out. So the first one is from James Smith, who asked this question. Could I turn the beading upside down? Yeah, I could have done. In fact, Brian Watkinson pointed that very good point out and mentioned that used to be done at Aldenham and in the garages. So when buses had a bang, they swapped them round. Now, clearly, I don't believe this RT's advert panels were ever removed since the day the bus was built. And there were certain telltale signs which gave me that impression. Unfortunately, this beading, although the screw holes would, if I turned it upside down, go into, I'll use the word fresh wood. It's not fresh wood, but you know what I mean. It won't go into the original holes where the rusted old nails of screws used to be. However, you may notice in this picture on the right hand side, that there's a variation in the distance between the two screws at the top and then that last one at the bottom, and I didn't really want to disturb that arrangement, so by sort of moving them around, I probably would end up with a beading all over the blooming place, so I didn't want to do that. But you know, you're absolutely right, James. I could have done that and that would have worked well, but I thought best thing to do is to use that bit of beading as a template, then drill the holes with a 6mm drill, and then fill them with the little doweling things that you saw me doing before. I won't bother to show it now. And then that gave me fresh wood to put the back in, so the beading now is in its original place. Right, so thanks for that, James. I've got another question about the roof, which will be coming up later. So let's get on with some other things in the meantime. You might recall I whipped this off last weekend and I then popped it into paint stripper. So at the end of the weekend, it was looking really quite dandy. I put some cure rust on that, where you got those rusty bits. That was cure rusted, and that is now ready for the primer coats. More on that maybe another day, but this is not a particularly exciting part of the bus, is it really?
As you may have gathered, this is the roof of the barn, and I'm standing on a ladder at the moment, leaning over the roof of the bus. I've cheated a little bit. Health and safety would really tell me off for doing this. I am up here on my own. It's very early on Sunday morning, funnily enough. So my plan of action, I've got a little bit of paint still on the back here on this corner panel that I want to get off before I start respraying it, because we might actually end up with a bit of a reaction between the old paint that's been on the roof and the new primer coat. So I don't want a reaction on that. Not that you'll probably notice it on the roof, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, so the plan of action is I want to get off all the old paint, and it's really stubborn because there's several layers of it and it's really tough. So I'm using a fairly aggressive sanding disc on the DA. Once all the paint is off, I've removed the dust, I've washed the roof back down again, and it's dried off. I've still got to mask up all the stuff that I'm not going to paint. And then plan number one is to put a primer coat, a grey primer coat on the aluminium. What that does is that etches into the metal, so it holds it on. Then that will give me a clue as to whether I need to do a little bit more filling. I hope I don't, because this place is full of dust in here now. And then the second part will be to put a kind of filler primer coat on, and what that is a very heavy coat of paint which you can then rub down quite easily, and it would lose any blemishes. So if I've got blemishes in the filler, that hopefully will disappear. And then once all that is done, we can then look at putting a top coat on to see what she looks like with the first top coat on. I really do want to get the top coat on because when I come in here on a Saturday or Sunday morning, it doesn't look very good, the back of the bus, and it kind of disheartens me a little bit to see it looking like this. And I'm sure you do too. When you look at it, you think, oh God. And I do. I come in the morning, I think, oh, I don't feel like I might as well go home. But no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to push on. So getting the back of the bus to look tidy, I think, will lift my spirits a little bit, because this has been dragging on for far too long now. Now we're on episode 99. I can't believe that we've done nearly 100 of these. And I don't feel there's any progress. I just feel that it's just another weekend up the barn. But the good thing is, it is October, as I mentioned in the intro, so I'm going to probably have a few extra days up here when we get to school holidays, providing it doesn't get too nippy. It feels a bit cold up here this morning, actually. I said earlier on it was, I think Saturday was quite nice, but Sunday morning it's a little bit colder. But anyway, here we are. So I'm up on the roof of the bus. I'm going to get on with sanding this, and I'll let you to watch and see what else I have and haven't done.
Right, so while I carry on with putting filler in the back of the bus, a never-ending task, young Kevin Forecast popped in to have a chat on Saturday. We also had over the other side Mark Davis, Nick Smith, and Peter Veers, who popped in to get on with their buses over the other side. Sunday I was on my own, actually. There was no one else around Sunday. So, really good to see Kevin, and it was really good to see all the other people over the other side, and share coffees and fish and chips and stuff. So, the social element of working down at the barn is great fun. So, anyway, let's move on. I've got a question, haven't I? Should we do the question now? Right, so Chris spotted these little sort of square patches on the roof of the RT. So Chris, here is your answer.
Right, in answer to the question, what are these squares on the roof of the RT? Now, the ceiling below this is the upper deck ceiling, obviously. In this one is a one-piece jickwood ceiling, so it's complete all the way down to the front. There's no strapping anywhere down the sort of the middle aisles, as it were. Now, I imagine these were a strengthening piece because they coincide exactly with where the upright poles are. So where you've got one of the grab handles, underneath here is a grab handle, and this particular one is the one at the top of the staircase. So when you come up the top of the staircase, you'll find one there. So that is what I think they are. They are just basically strengthening pieces. They don't have anything, there's some screws around the edge there, but I'm not really going to venture into taking them off to see, well, to prove the point. But there we are. So that's what I reckon that is.
Right, so there we are, Chris. Hopefully that answers your question. If you've got any other comments, like Chris or James, can you drop me a note in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer them, either in sort of text form or perhaps by one of these. Makes it a little bit more interesting, I suppose, doesn't it? Right, so let's get on. We've got a load of work still to do on this bus. Right, so before we can start spraying anything, we've got to sort of give the bus a little bit of a clean up, get some of the more stubborn dust off. I've already blown the high pressure airline over this, and yeah, the intention is I need to mask up all of the glass and everything else that I don't want to get sort of covered in paint. Unfortunately, some of that that dust is really quite stubborn. So what I'm going to do is going to mask her up first. And then once that's done, the areas that I'm going to paint, I run over with a tacky cloth. I've already washed off as much as I can, but I've got to be careful this weekend. Can't put too much water on there because water and paint don't exactly mix. So it needs to be dry. So the previous weekend, I'd given her a really good wash off. Right, so there we are. That is a rather boring half-a-day job, sticking paper over everything. Yeah, I know it doesn't look good in this shot. All that paper that's hanging there down over the platform, I put that on the bus when I did the side blind box because I don't want the green spray going inside the bus for pretty obvious reasons. So my plan of action is, once that's all masked up, to put what you see in grey, that bare metal, into a primer coat. Unfortunately, the original green that's in there, if you have a look, you can see some little patches. That's where I've done filling, and some of the old paint is still on there, and that grey didn't like that old paint and it reacted slightly. So because it's only very small patches, I think I can get away with that. I'll just rub the grey back down again and I'll put another coat on. I've got to do probably a couple of coats of that grey anyway. It's already identified some further work. The problem is that, and I know I've said this before and apologies for boring anyone, once you put it into one colour, you can actually really see all those little patches and blobs and stuff. They do distract the eye. So yeah, one colour, and it pretty much shows up all the blemishes and all the problems, and probably another weekend's worth of work. Ugh. I've had to put a bit of paper that goes down those panels that I put on, those brand new panels that I sprayed the other day, just in case there's any overspray. I don't think there will, because I haven't had a lot of overspray so far, and I really don't think much will settle on there, but I'm reusing old masking paper just down the side of the bus just to cover that up. The rest of the windows don't matter too much, because the good thing about glass, you can actually scrape overspray off. So anyway, there we are. So that is the bus when it's all masked up, and this, tra-la, is the bus once it's been painted grey. Does that look better? So when I turn up this weekend, perhaps I feel just a little bit more inspired to be getting on with the work. I'm going to have to do the big window at some point. I did all that stuff above the line because I've got to use ladders and things. So I just left that lower window for the time being. I'm going to do that this coming weekend. I hope I'll get that prepped. There's not a lot of work to be done on that, and then just play catch up with that. So so there we are. So hopefully, friends, you've enjoyed watching this, or at least endured at least almost 25 minutes of this stuff. So thank you very much for watching. Once again, if you've got any comments, stick them in that thing below. and I'll try and come back to you when I get a moment. And yeah, as usual, I look forward to doing the next one. And if you want to, YouTube might find a few more for you to watch.